Welcome to the Fancy a Brew podcast. I'm Andy the Northern Diver. In this series I'll be discussing adventure, conservation and progression in scuba diving with some really interesting and inspirational divers that you might or not have heard of. The podcast is supported by Northern Diver International and you the listener through Patreon. So grab yourself a brew and enjoy this week's episode. Right then, so Series 2, Episode 3 with Chris Knight. Welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast. Have you got a brew with you, mate?
I have, yeah. In my little camera cup.
I'm very jealous of that mug. I asked for one of them last Christmas and never got one. So, but I mean, I've got this one, which is kind of as good, but
yeah.
So I'm a bit jealous. So give us a little bit of an intro, mate, to who you are, where you are, what you do. Not too many spoilers, because obviously we'll have no chat about.
So obviously my name's Chris Knight. I primarily work as a firefighter here in sort of Slough. Not that I really want to say I'm in Slough. I live in Windsor and I'm also a professional photographer on the side. As you know, when I can afford it, I like to go chasing sharks and whales and crocodiles underwater. But it's an expensive hobby, so most of the stuff I'm doing day to day is like pet portraiture, specialising in like dogs and horses and stuff in the local area.
Is that Amazon at front door?
Did you hear a knock?
Yeah, is that Amazon?
No, I didn't hear a knock.
All right.
That's sorry, that could be, yeah.
Don't worry about it. Amazon rang the doorbell when I was recording before. I did another podcast this morning. Amazon's up front door. I'm like, oh, flipping heck. Ruin me recording.
Is that your missus on that computer buying all them clothes again?
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah. So you actually are the second firefighter I've had on my podcast, and she also moonlights outside of the working day. So she runs a dive centre and trips abroad and all stuff like that. So how exciting is it being a fireman? Is it as glamorous as they sort of make out? As in girls make out, that is.
Well, I don't really want to ruin it, but it's not quite what it probably used to be. I mean, buildings are built safer to higher regulations, cars are built safer, people are crashing and getting out of them, which is all great, great news. But it's like buses, it can have a quiet time and then it can just go crazy one night and all sorts of things can happen. So we do occasionally run into burning buildings. I did run into a burning building last week, which was the first time for a while, yeah.
Wow. So she busts the myth that you're all a bunch of gym queens. So you just sit there pumping iron, playing snooker, drinking brews all day. She said, actually, we do actually do some real work. I'm like, behave. I guess that's true, isn't it?
Well, I'm no gym queen. That's why the computer's up here, so you can't see what's down there.
Same. So this photography lark. Then what came first? Was it diving or photography for you?
So I left school and didn't know what to do with my life. I knew the only things I liked was art and CDT and all that sort of stuff. So I took a mixed art and design course. One of the modules was photography, and I specialised in that. And I'm not going to lie, I was out having too much fun at college and they were, Chris, sort it out or leave, so I left. Went to work at British Airways, good wage for my age, but it was a desk job. Went crawling back with my tail between my legs, said, can I come and finish my course? And then did the photography, really enjoyed it. Went to university and unfortunately it was, because I came back to my course, I missed out on the route A to the university and only got like a course I wasn't really into. Didn't enjoy it. Some guy I met that did extreme sports television said, do you want a job? So I quit university and went there. So
wow.
Photography kind of remained a hobby for me for years, and then I slowly started doing things for myself and getting into it. And then obviously when I found diving and found sharks, I was like, I need to take photos of this. So I started off with my little Sony camera in its little plastic housing, and then gradually bought better and better cameras and just got more into photography as a whole.
Yeah. We were introduced through the Silent Hunter, or the guy that goes by the pseudonym or whatever, the Silent Hunter, Mike Bolton.
Silent Hunter, it's not silent, it could talk forever, ever.
He can talk. I tell you what, we had 3 goes at recording that podcast because the sound quality was dire, and he was such a good, good guy to get back on. It was so interesting, but the problem with doing it a record so many times is you kind of know what the answers are, so you
you
frame the
lose a
questions
bit.
slightly differently. And we had the first interview was like 3 hours, then about an hour and a half, then we did it in about half an hour, the last one, because I knew exactly what I wanted from him. So like give him all the right questions, and he's kind of just like, I've got to go out, I've got a barbecue going on or something, I'm going out in a bit, so can we hurry up? But he was a good egg, he actually bothered, so fair play to him. But how did you meet him?
So I got involved with, I ended up doing like a lot of shark sort of conservation trips where you basically pay and go and volunteer for a month. After that, I found a guy called Eli Martinez who used to run Shoutouts magazine. Now it's called SDM Adventures. He does trips to see each species of shark in the best place to see them at the best time of the year, often in the places where National Geographic or Discovery film. So I just started going through his itinerary of all these different trips, one after the other. And then on one, I met Mike, and he was out on the boat with us, and it was just amazing. Like, you know what he's like. He's such a cool dude. I could talk to him for ages and ages.
So did that sort of inspire you to like get more into that wildlife photography?
It's tricky because, like I say, I've always had an interest, and I've always sort of shot for myself when I can, when I've gone on holiday. And then it was just, eventually when I was getting better cameras and realising that I could get some good results, when I took a killer photo, I looked at it and I've gone, that's great. Like, I want to do more, I want to do better. I want to sell prints and all that sort of stuff. And then when I thought, I mean, obviously, as you know, we moonlight on the side. I used to have a window cleaning business. So I used to work all hours that God sent, and then I would literally take a month off work in the winter and go away on one of these very expensive diving trips. And then after that, I wanted to kind of like specialise in just photography instead of window cleaning on the side. So it was a hard journey, and I was doing like christenings and weddings and stuff that I wasn't really interested in, but then actually really channeled it into sort of animal portraiture, and now I'm quite well known in the area for dogs. Slowly getting a bit more well known sort of in the horse market, and I just really enjoy it. It's a pain in the arse. I say I never work with kids or animals, but I absolutely love it. And when someone says to me my dog is a pain in the arse, it doesn't do what it's told, it won't sit still, you're never going to get it. When you work hard and you go to deliver their prints or this book and the customer bursts into tears, you're like, I've nailed it.
Cracked it, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just giving them those.
Yeah, was that a proper binary decision then?
I mean, I've been working towards it on my shark trips, and I took a lot of lessons to make my shark photos better in the hope of selling them as prints, which again is quite a tricky thing to do to make proper money from. And then it's never a short story, I'm sorry. So I was doing my window cleaning business, and I was selling parts of the business and trying to put more effort into my photography, and I wanted to do a slow transition. But I went out to Hawaii, and I was shooting down the barrel with a photographer friend who I also met on one of the trips. And this massive wave kind of came along. I was in the wrong place. I tried to get in the right place, and it scooped me up the back of the wave over the falls, as the surfers call it, and it pushed me through the water and slammed me onto the sand. And in that moment, I thought I'd snap my spine. Like, I hit it so hard.
Really?
And then as I was being tumbled around, I realised I could move my arms and legs, but what I didn't realise is I'd really ruptured a disc in my back. So that basically put me out of action. I couldn't walk for 4 months. I couldn't return to work for 7 months, and I wasn't back on full duties as a firefighter again for nearly a year. So I was going to lose my my window cleaning business. So while I was laid up, I sold my business to my other mates at the fire station.
Yeah.
Bought a couple of camera lenses and thought, when I'm over this, I'm just going to concentrate on my photography.
All right. Yeah.
And that's been it, really. And now I have managed to sort of channel it and grow the business. And I'm quite enjoying it. Don't miss window cleaning at all. Miss the money.
The more photographers I speak to, the more that certainly the ones that are doing it full time, or looks like you are professionally. So you're doing it a lot, rather than me just once a week or once in a blue moon that I can get my camera in somewhere. They've found that they've come on leaps and bounds because they're messing with the settings and different opportunities that they have, and the developing ideas that they can take into the water. Do you find that's been the same for you? You've progressed massively since you've done it more regularly?
Massively. I mean, I think it was good when I had a clear sense of direction that I want to take photographs of animals.
Yeah.
So I would Google and YouTube is your friend. You don't have to pay massive money to learn these days. And I've been specifically looking for things based on that problem I was having or how to make that better.
Yeah.
And that's really helped me. But now when people come up to me and they say, can you photograph my newborn baby, or I'm a performer and I want some photos of this, I really enjoy the challenge of something different, which gets me out of my comfort zone, makes me think outside the box. Perhaps I'm using flash outdoors rather than a controlled environment. And every time you pick up that camera, it makes you a better photographer, makes you more adaptable. And as you know, like underwater, you have to be adaptable. You've got to keep your eye out for these dangerous sharks, and then you've got to keep an eye on your settings as well.
Yeah.
To try and get these good results.
Tell me about it. And then you've got to master your buoyancy control, monitor that none of your mates have buggered off and left you. It's just never ending, isn't it?
It is. We do like a challenge.
The thing I struggle with trying to remember is, I understand the light triangle, so your ISO, your f-stop, and your shutter speed, but how each one of them relates, so what you would gain from changing one or another. I've gone through training, but because I'm not using it regularly enough, I just try and sort of find a balance somewhere where the light's kind of right, but I might not have the right depth of field, or I might not have the right sort of colour and definition to the picture. So what tips can you give us to think about next time we get in the water, or certainly for someone who's listening to this and thinking of at least changing to somewhat manual settings, whether they be on aperture priority or shutter speed or full manual like I'm trying to do?
You put me on the spot now, so I'm going to say that to start off with, I probably used to wing it, because as you just described, it's quite a tricky thing. But now through, again, there's a wealth of information online. There's free articles about how to set up your camera, how to set up your strobes, how to work with big animals, how to work with macro, read up, do your homework. And I generally try and set my settings before I go in the water. So when I'm generally shooting the big stuff, which is crocodiles, sharks or whales or whatever, I'm generally at between f8 and f11. So I might start at, say, f9. My flash sync speed, I can't go over 1/250th of a second with my strobes anyway, which is a bit of a tricky thing with underwater strobes. Some camera systems and add-ons will let you do more than that.
Yeah.
So that's all already set. So I've got 1/250th of a second at f9. I'm going to guess my ISO, looking at how cloudy is it, how clear is the water, am I in the Bahamas, am I in the UK? So I might start at 400, I might start at 800. Right. And then I'll go in and I'll probably just adjust the power of the flashes manually, because I haven't got a TTL system. And then once you've done, for instance, when I'm doing these extravagant trips and we're doing 6 dives a day, you generally can kind of nail your settings on the first dive. Yeah. And then hopefully you're set for the day. The only awkward thing is with flash is obviously if that huge creature comes closer to you, then you might be overexposed, and if he's quite far away, then you might be underexposed. So yeah, if you can eliminate whatever you can eliminate and control, that's better if you can do that beforehand, and then hopefully you've only got to adjust your flash power.
Well, I'll be listening to this every time I go diving now, just so I can remember those 3 bits. That'll be massive.
Well, you know where I am. Give me a call.
Right, I'm just getting in Cape and Ray now. It's quite cloudy. The water's a bit murky. What settings in it?
Don't laugh. I've had mates like literally FaceTime me,
really,
like from the boat, going. I mean, as well, there's a couple of people that I've actually coached as well, and we've done a lot of practical, like here, sort of on dry ground, but then they've gone out there and they're freaking out going, I've got this one-off experience, have I got my settings right? And I'm like, FaceTime me. I'll answer, I'll tell you what I can. Obviously that doesn't work underwater, but I'll do the best I can.
Brilliant. But I love doing it because there's so much to sort of gather, and I can sit there on the bottom of me in just 6 meters of water and just faff for ages. The people I go with don't want to sit around and wait for me, so it's hard sometimes to find a dive site that let you dive alone, or people that are happy to take their camera in and sort of just be next to you and just faffing away themselves, you know, to try and get what you want. But when you get some training or get the right shot, it's so rewarding, isn't it?
We need to dive together then. I've done that. I've gone on a dive trip and I was in the Red Sea and I've walked past some clown loaches, like in the sea anemones.
Yeah.
Walked past, did I say walk?
Yeah,
Dive
you did.
past. And it was fascinating. I was like, this is perfect. Let me just sit here for 40 minutes and just play and try and get the thing. But obviously you have to move on. So yeah, that's a bit frustrating.
Talking about solo diving then, when we spoke last week, you were talking to me about, you do a little bit of work as well, didn't you? Underwater on your own.
Yeah. So local to us is a very big water ski and wakeboard complex. It's probably the biggest one sort of near London. And they've got one of these inflatable aqua parks, you know, like the big inflatable playgrounds. So people go on with their GoPros and then they fall off and they drop their GoPros and then the kid's crying and the mum speaks to the lifeguard and they give them my card and then I send them a drone picture and they mark an X where the obstacle they fell off and then I go down and find it and charge them a retrieval fee.
Wow.
So actually in the last 3 years, like in the summers, I've been making a good bit of money out of people dropping their GoPros, phones, why they're taking their phones on there, wedding rings, drones. I mean, a drone obviously is probably broken, but they need to produce a wet drone to claim on insurance rather than no drone. And then on top of that, I do all the underwater repairs. So when people drop boat engines or when anchors, which hold the things down, need retrieving or moving, I'm in there. So often when it's absolutely freezing and being taken out for winter or put back in after winter.
How do you find the water quality though? Is it pretty murky or is it quite clear or?
So where we live, so I'm actually in a little village called Raisbury, very close to Heathrow Airport, and there's a lot of sand and gravel in the area. So what is now a lot of lakes. So all of this sand and gravel was what was used to build the M25, M4, Heathrow Airport, all of that stuff. And the water's very still and it's actually very clear because of the nature of the bottom. I mean, obviously if the boats have been running and if other people were diving and kicking it up, it will sort of raise the sill. But generally it's quite good. It's only late summer when the boats have been running and when the water warms and the organisms grow, the visibility can go like, I don't know, to nearly zero. But now, at its coldest, it's beautiful, crystal clear.
That's nice. I mean, up here, most of them are like sandstone quarries. So there's a lot of wash that comes off the rocks or we've got quite a clay build up in the soil. And then certainly as you go more into the Lake District, it's quite peaty, the soil. So you get that sort of brown coloured, almost like diving in a cup of tea. It's pretty rubbish.
Oh no!
And that's largely all year round. And then when you get that plankton, not plankton bloom, what do you call it?
Algae bloom.
Algae bloom.
Algae,
thanks for coming.
Also, yeah.
It just becomes like a soup, doesn't it? You can't see a thing.
You're not selling it to me. I'm not coming up there for a dive.
Yeah, don't come up north, mate. You'll get dizzy. It's a bit weird, and the people are thick. Stay down south, mate. So anyway, you elaborated before things that you dive with, and crocodiles came up on a conversation I had the other day, and I've seen one of your photographs. It looks like, I think it's a crocodile anyway, and its mouth's right open, almost like looking at you. And I thought that's a cracking shot. That. So is that more nerve-wracking than getting in with sharks, perhaps?
I think because I hadn't done it before, it was a bit nerve-wracking. But the guy that I've done my trips with, I've done a lot of shark trips with, he's very good. He's got a very good safety record. He's very knowledgeable. And then also he will kind of like, it'll be like a local dive centre that he'll use, which they go there like all the time, but he just runs like a once a year trip. So between him and our other instructors, you have a very, very detailed safety briefing, like the day and the night before, and you kind of take the time and get in slowly and get used to it. So when I first got in the water, I was a bit nervous, I'm not going to lie. It was a bit different. I didn't even think you could get in the water with crocodiles before I saw this trip. But in this place where they are, they're actually quite predictive and very relaxed because they know they're going to get fed. They don't have to be aggressive. So yeah, I mean, I was literally holding my fisheye lens almost in its mouth, and it was fine.
Wow.
I got some behind the scenes photos that everybody's like, what are you doing? And there was only one point in that trip where I got scared because they flick a fish carcass on the top of the water for it to snap in the hope that you get a good snapping shot.
Yeah.
One got the fish. Another one turned up, trod on that one's foot. That one thought he was trying to steal his fish, so they had a bit of a scuffle, and all of the sand kicked up, and visibility went to zero. One crocodile came out of this sort of cloud of sand, straight for my crutch. So I jumped in the air, opened my legs, and he swam straight through my legs, and just literally went and sat 5 meters away and ate his fish because he just wanted to get away from the other one.
Yeah.
But my heart rate increased quite a bit.
Tell us about the great white shark then, because I don't know if you've seen, I put on Instagram this morning that I've just booked to go to South Africa, and we're going to do like a research sort of trip for a couple of weeks and at the beginning of September. I don't think we're going to get outside the cage, to be honest, but for you to build up to getting outside the cage and sort of free swimming with them, what can you talk us sort of through that? Can you tell us?
So I'll try and give you another little story. So I had family in Cape Town in South Africa. Yeah. And I still had a cousin there, and I wanted to go out and see a great white. So I went out. This is how I got into the whole thing as well. Went out, booked a cage dive, and you had to do an introduction to scuba to be able to breathe the reg in the cage at the surface. So I did that, went off on this trip. Unfortunately, it was the wrong time of year, and I didn't see anything. And I came back to the dive company and said, how was your day? I said, it was rubbish. He said, look, you're halfway through your open water course, finish your course, and I'll sort something out. And I was like, okay, so finished my course. He sent me to the aquarium in the waterfront in Cape Town. He said, ask for Mike, found him, and he chucked me in the tank with the ragged-tooth sharks without a cage. Yeah. And I was like, this is brilliant. So that's obviously what led to my hunger for this. And then years later, like I said about these research projects, I found white shark projects, and they took me on for a month as a research assistant. I had to pay like basic costs for a sort of accommodation and my own flights, obviously. And we went cage diving every day. Saw loads of sharks, totally got my fix. And I did ask about the opportunity of me getting out of the water, out of the cage into the open water. They said, unfortunately there, unless you've got a research or a filming permit, there's absolutely no chance because of the regulations there. There was plenty of people who were happy to take me out of the cage, but because of the regulations wouldn't.
Yeah.
So it was only later on when I went somewhere else and realised that I could, that I kind of jumped at the opportunity.
I bet. I've seen it, and much like when I was in the Red Sea last year and we dived with the oceanic white tips, with, like you said, the sort of safety briefs they go through, they're quite in depth, and they set you on a sort of an understanding of actually it's pretty safe as long as you follow these guidelines. So I should imagine that getting in with such a big animal like that would be quite comfortable, really, because you can see the body language before you'd even get in the water, and they just seem to not really be that interested in just moseying on past you. Maybe have a quick look, and maybe you'll have a little panic poo. But then you just get on with it, and it just seems amazing. So how were you when you did it?
Well, like you said, I mean, I'd spent a lot of time with sharks before. I'd done tigers, I'd done bull sharks and bull reef sharks and sort of thing. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously they've got that ferocious kind of like that story behind them. But what I didn't realise so much about great whites is they're quite predictable, like you said, with their body language. So you often have a dominance thing where one will be circling you, and the others, because of his dominance, will have to kind of stay back and almost wait their turn. So you only really have to keep an eye on one shark as opposed to maybe 4 or 5.
Right.
And they said if their fins are flat and their mouth is shut and they're sort of swimming quite slowly, then generally you're fine. But they said if their fins are down and their mouth's a little bit open and they're twitchy, they're like, get back on the boat. So obviously it was a bit daunting at first, but when I saw it pass by and it was swimming very slowly, very relaxed, didn't care about us, I was just like, this is brilliant.
Mike, when I was chatting to him, he was saying how he'd been freediving, spearfishing or whatever for quite some time, like a good hour or two in the water, and obviously he'd made quite a few catches with his spear gun, so there's a lot of fish guts and stuff floating around in the water. And when he got grabbed, I think it was a tiger that grabbed him, and round the calf or something like that. And I'm like, flipping heck, you know, you kind of think, wow, you know, you're so lucky to come out of that and being able to get out the water and be okay. But then, can you imagine getting back in? I can't, not at all.
I think you'd have to get back in quite quickly, wouldn't you? Otherwise, you might never go in the sea again. I love hearing all these stories of, like, there's all these famous people that, like, surfers that have been attacked by sharks. And who was that girl? I can't remember her name. Is it Bethany someone? She lost an arm, and when she was really young, and then she went back out and won all these surf competitions with, like, one arm. Yeah. There's an amazing. I wish I could remember the name. Oh, maybe you can put a link up on one of your socials when I find it for people. It's a very inspiring story.
Well, there's a surfer, a professional one, and I was watching it. It was only it was on a few weeks ago, but I think it was a repeat. So the last contest he'd been in, he was just sat on his board waiting for a wave, and he got attacked by a shark. Then you could see him like decking it, punching it, and, you know, fighting it off. And I think he got bit, and his board had a big bite out of it, as they do. Got back in, got back out, sorry, and he was okay. And then, let's say a year later, on his next surfing event, exactly the same thing happened to him. He got attacked again. Nobody else did except him. It's like, nah, I'd have to. Two's enough. Well, one's probably enough, to be honest. But
was this name Mike? Was he an Australian surfer?
He probably was, but
I think it was, and it happened at a big event, didn't it? And this thing came up, and there was a really interesting interview. There was an interview that came out where they interviewed the shark, and they were like, from the shark's perspective, he was like, I only went over to say hi, and this bloody Aussie guy just started punching me in the face. He was going, what is wrong with these people? It was a really good read.
Oh, I'll definitely go to find a link to that then. Have you got any massive plans to go shark diving again?
Well, as we know, the whole world's currently in lockdown due to this COVID rubbish.
Yeah.
So I think we're all kind of sat there waiting to see what's going to happen with that. It's been a long time, obviously, since I had that injury with my back and lost the window cleaning business, and I haven't really had the money, and I've been concentrating on my photography, so I'm dying to get back in the sea and get back in with sharks. A good friend of mine, he really wants to do a proper shark dive for his 40th. So I said, look, let's go together. Let's go on one of Eli's trips. And we're looking to do a combination of great hammerheads in the Bahamas, followed by Tiger Beach in the Bahamas. It's like a week's long liverboard. That'll be running sort of end of November, start of December next year. So I'm hoping that this whole COVID crisis has calmed down by then and we can fly. So at the moment, just knuckling down, doing overtime at work, putting some money away, and then
you've got to get some squirreling done with that cash now while you can, while it's there. I'm kind of the same. I haven't paid into this trip in September yet, and they're quite happy to hold my place open till sort of July, when we should have a good idea of whether it's likely to go ahead, and then they're quite happy for me to pay it in full then, which is ace, because you don't want to invest a load of money into something that isn't going to happen, do you? But
that's the good thing. Yeah, it was 500 quid deposit now. You pay like part in July and then the rest in September. So it should have cleared up by then.
When I can work, I think I'm going to just graft like mad, try and keep my fitness up when I can get out, and then just see what comes my way. You know, if a decent trip comes off and I can afford it, just jump on it rather than try and book too much in advance and then just keep getting let down, because we don't know what's going to happen. This vaccine might not work with the way the strains are sort of changing and stuff. It might not be effective, or it might just die out by March. We might be completely clear of it. It might just have mutated that much that it's dead. Fingers crossed.
We might die out, yeah, one or the other.
Well, we might, yeah. Well, sharks will have a chance then, won't they?
Yeah.
So have you ever done much conservation work outside of that? You know, stuff that you haven't discussed already, like with any notable charities?
Well, marine conservation wise, there was a couple of photos which kind of put me on the map and gave me a little bit of fame and some articles. So I submitted some of my images to be used in like marine conservation calendars. And then I actually did a few things with the Shark Trust and with Sea Changers, where I was like a photographer for them. And I was donating sort of part of the profits of sort of little clothing business I had and some print sales to those. And then other than that, I still do a lot of charity work. So when I do dog events and dog photo shoots, I donate to a thing called the Dogs Nobody Wants Sanctuary. They've got 19 dogs in wheelchairs, which are all paralysed, incontinent.
Wow.
And this guy looks after them for the rest of their life. And then when I do horse events, I give out to Blue Acre Horse Rescue, which is a local charity that they've got 57 horses, all which have been battered and mistreated and now free roam on a beautiful 42-acre site on the river. So they're all happy now.
Oh, awesome, mate. That's
so yeah.
isn't it? That's good. What about competitions wise? Do you enter many?
Competitions is a tricky one. I think for a long time I didn't think I was good enough, even though people would be like, "Oh, that print's amazing," and I'd look at other people's and I'd think, "Oh, I don't know about that." I remember that crocodile photo that you were talking about, where it was snapping. I was kind of on the wrong setting. I was at like f1.8. I didn't have a fast enough shutter speed. And a lot of people were going, "Oh, I like the way you've captured the motion," but I wasn't trying to capture motion. I was trying to get it with his mouth open. And I entered this thing called Viewbug. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's some little photo site, and won like a Pluto flash trigger. And I was like, "Oh my God, I've won something." And then I did join the Underwater Photography Association here in the UK and entered some of the club competitions and got a couple of little bits in their magazine and stuff. But yeah, I'd entered a couple of big competitions, but never really had any big wins. And it's also a bit disheartening when you have to pay to enter. Like sometimes you've got to pay X amount of dollars to enter each entry.
I didn't realise they're actually quite expensive, aren't they? They're like $50 or something.
Yeah. And as you know, I mean, we're paying for kit, we're paying for holidays, we're paying for Photoshop subscriptions and this, that, and I'm like, it's just another thing to pay out for that I don't know if I'm going to get anything back. So sometimes I don't bother.
Well, I was talking to a guy earlier and he was saying something similar. It was more of a crowdfunding event and there was different levels that you could enter at. And the level he put some money in to help this guy progress in what field he was doing, nobody else had. So each sort of level was whatever level you entered at, you were entered into a bit of a draw. So there was prizes to be given out anyway, and then a further draw that everyone would get entered into to win a holiday to Fiji. And he said nobody entered at his level, so he was like de facto he was gonna win, and he won like loads of really cool kit and like this holiday to Fiji and all this. And I think, well, sometimes maybe you might be entering a photo competition. There might only be 3 of you, not 300 of you. So you just never know. I mean, I get intimidated looking at some of the photos out there because I'm nowhere near that level yet. Nowhere near. But I think, well, if you don't try, it might just be the judge's eye that captures what you've done, because everyone else might be doing something that's quite samey, and you've just, like you said, you've fluked it with a particular shot that you didn't mean to take.
Yeah.
But someone goes, flipping it, that's mega, that, because it's so different perhaps than what everybody sees or sees as the right way.
You've got to be in it to win it. And like, I mean, my photos aren't as good as others, but I know sometimes I've seen some of the winners of these competitions and I thought, oh, I'm pretty sure mine would have been better than that. So like you say, you don't know, is it just the judge at the time or was there a small amount of people entering? So you got to give it a go. But it's also, I think sometimes having confidence in your images, you're like this. So have you seen, I guess you've seen that photo of a great white where it's from behind and it's its tail. It's just its tail with it going away. That was probably one of the images that really put me on the map and got me a lot of articles. I bought a new camera for the trip, which was a Sony RX100, which is an amazing compact camera, the fixed lens. And on the first day, I got in. I didn't shoot in, for you photographers out there, I didn't shoot in RAW. I put it into JPEG. I shot the photo, edited it in like Photoshop Elements, thought I did a good job, which I didn't. And as years later, when I learned more about photography, I wanted to go back and re-edit that photo. I deleted the original, so I was re-editing and edited JPEG.
Wow.
And I've got it now. It looks like it A3, like on metal. It looks stunning. but you couldn't blow it up any bigger because I've had to like really push it to edit it. And then I did a TV interview, and someone contacted me when they saw the image, and they were like, I want that like 6 foot by 4 foot. It would have cost them, I could have made thousands on it, but unfortunately it was so much of a mistake that I could never begin to blow it up. But something that I didn't have that much confidence in and was a mistake has actually given me one of my most famous images, and what I've learned from my mistakes is amazing. So it's kind of helped me out in that way.
I think that's the most important lesson to learn, isn't it? If you do mess up, learn why and how to not do that again, perhaps.
Yeah, you can let yourself, you can let it get you down, but yeah, you've really got to like use these mistakes and learn from them. It's the same with anything in life, not just your photography, I suppose.
Nah. So what do you print on? Is it only aluminium? Because I've heard somebody it was on my last season's podcast, Nerd Tucker, I told you about before. She prints onto canvas, and she said it almost looks like an oil painting. So what do you do?
It's tricky. So when I mentioned this Don guy I met on one of the trips, he was a very successful businessman, retired, moved to Hawaii, and was into photography, but not massively. Teamed up with someone, and they put together a gallery. So now they've got 3 galleries in Hawaii, and they just sell photos on aluminium. So it's a very thin sheet of aluminium, and you almost print a photo on this special paper, which is laid onto the aluminium, and then through a heat press, it's kind of like pushed into the aluminium. So I think like the pigment's almost changed to a gas, and it gets impregnated into the aluminium, and it looks like an amazing glossy photograph. And it's very light to ship, looks super glossy. It's quite minimalist. You don't need a frame. But the vibrancy of the colours is insane. Yeah. And because it's impregnated, you can put it in bathrooms, in kitchens where there's steam. You can put it on your veranda outside, and it could rain on it, and it won't hurt the print at all. Wow. And his gallery, I just looked in this gallery, and he had just simple, like, Walmart spotlights. Like, it wasn't like any posh lighting set up, and it just looked like they were backlit. And I was like, wow. So I have started printing on that. But day to day, what I offer mostly for my pet portraiture is either like a very high quality fine art print printed on a textured fine art paper, traditionally mounted in museum grade glass, so it's got no reflection for the people that want that traditional look. Yeah. And then I print also on photo paper, which is sandwiched between acrylic. They'll just call it acrylic prints, which gives you quite a bit of depth and a really high gloss look. And then that can be mounted in frames as well. So it just kind of depends what the customer wants and where they want to hang it as well.
Do you tend to do much travelling with your pet portrait stuff, or is it just quite local, or do people come to you?
Yeah, so I'm mainly serving the local area, so kind of like a 20-mile radius really. If they wanted me to go further afield, I'd have to sort of charge them, but I will travel wherever they want me to, sort of, for the photos. But we're quite blessed around here to have a lot of really nice places like Windsor Great Park and Virginia Water. So it's a place where we can take dogs and horses to go and do sort of like nice featured photo shoots.
Yeah, I've seen a few of your dog ones where they're sat on like Chesterfields and they're all done up like little gentlemen and that. They're just missing a little Churchill cigar.
Little bow ties. Yeah.
It's brilliant. I was trying to show my wife last night when we were chatting, saying this is what he does, but I don't know how far we need to travel, or he will travel, because me in-laws have got quite a lovely dog, and they'd be really blessed, with a photo like that. But just getting them down to you, that's the problem, innit?
It's been different things. I mean, I know someone I know who runs an estate in Scotland, and they were like, "Oh, can you come up? I want to photograph my dog and all this and that." And I was like, "Pay for my flight and my accommodation," which they've got their accommodation. I was like, "No, come and do it for you," sort of thing. So it's quite nice to sort of work together with people. I was getting quite a unique opportunity because, like I said, I only want to do this to pay to go and have these experiences. Yeah. So if someone said to me, like, "I'll send you on an all-expenses paid shark trip and I'll own your photos so that I can use it for the promotion," I'm like, brilliant. That's the only reason well, it's not the only reason I do it. I want to be creative and capture that thing, but the money I earn will just go straight back into these experiences anyway.
Absolutely.
So stuff like that's quite nice.
And the little charitable deposits that you're making as well, which are always helpful for for that charity in particular, aren't they? What revolves around the photographs you're taking. That's good.
Yeah.
So, do you have a massive preference, underwater or overwater?
Oh dear, I couldn't really pick one. If you made me pick one, I think I'd struggle. I mean, obviously, if I had the money and the time to do underwater photography all the time, if I lived somewhere where I lived on a beach and I could literally every morning go off and just snorkel with my camera, like it would be an absolute dream for me, it really would. But I don't know, I like all animals, so yeah, I couldn't really pick between one.
That's ace. So what have you got next? Anything? Nothing?
What's going on as in this year or?
Yeah, you must
well, I don't know, I guess we're all just all waiting for COVID to disappear really. I mean, I'm doing overtime at the fire station because of shortfalls, trying to keep them going, saving my pennies for a holiday and probably the next
Has COVID affected that then, with what you do at the fire station? Have you seen a detrimental effect of what work you do, or is it a rise in what you do?
So far, not much has changed. I mean, obviously we've got distancing and cleaning procedures at work, which have changed a little bit more. We can't go and do like our community stuff where we used to fit smoke alarms and go to factories and high wire stuff and check all of that because we're not really kind of confined to barracks. And it's been a little bit quieter, maybe because everyone's at home, so they're not out causing as much trouble. Pubs are shut. But then again, it's like buses, so we can have quiet time and then you could just be in and out all night with all sorts of stuff. We haven't had to start helping the NHS. I don't know if like things got bad and the hospitals were overrun, would they ask us to step in?
Well, I've noticed it's sort of being discussed in the news, isn't it? There's calling it like major incidents and that now that these hospitals seem to be quite busy. And I noticed someone had posted yesterday, well, why are these Nightingale hospitals not opening back up? I don't know whether they were completely shut down or taken away or why they aren't opening, or they might not be in the right area, I suppose. But it's crazy, isn't it, mate?
It is. No one could have. If I had told you this was going to happen a year ago, you'd have been like, whatever.
But if you'd have told me this time last year that we'd be chatting on a Zoom call with 50 or 60 different people that I have done so far, I'd be like, nah, that's weird. I'd never have done that. I didn't even do Zoom calls with my kids.
Oh, really? You never know what's around the corner.
I know. Well, you never know. This time next year, Rodney, we might be millionaires.
Yeah, hopefully. I keep my fingers crossed.
Hey, that'd be all right, wouldn't it? Well, do you want to give a shout out to anyone? Have you got any name drops you want to do? Any thanks to anybody?
I don't know. I suppose in terms of shark stuff, it's always a thank you to Eli Martinez from SDM Adventures. He's the one that kind of really got me involved in things and gave me the opportunities to swim with crocodiles and alligators and sharks. That's pretty good. I suppose thanks to Mike for our introduction. He's an awesome guy. And yeah, thanks to Don Herslow. I suppose he's one of the guys that I met on Eli's trips and has helped me out with a lot of photography stuff and taught me a few good things. That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on and sparing a bit of your afternoon with me, mate. It's nice to have another chin wag, and hopefully we'll catch up sometime soon. If
hopefully on a beach or on a boat somewhere.
It'd definitely be better than going to Raisbury, wouldn't it, mate?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, keep in touch, and obviously if you do end up going somewhere warm at the end of the year and there's any free time and any free spaces, more like, I don't mean free as in I don't have to pay, but that'd be nice. But if there's any room, let us know and I'll see if I can get on it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let you know.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. See you later.
Thanks for having me. All right, mate. Cheers.
Thanks very much to this week's guest for sharing their stories and interesting tales about the underwater world. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I did recording it. For more information on this episode, take a look at the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and follow us on Instagram for the latest news. Thanks again to Northern Diver International and those of you who have supported me through Patreon. Take care, and I'll see you on YouTube.